Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone. In this occasion, I would like to say thank you for coming to our presentation. Let me introduce myself. My name is Michael Fadlan, and I'm not alone here to explain these materials. And I'm with my group, consists of work people. They are me, Michael Fadlan, and Yusela Fahma and Shafa Tasya. As the first speaker, I would like to bring you to the first chapter, which is translation method. Let's get to the video. Okay everyone, in this presentation we will discuss about translation method. As you can see in the video, there are 4 table contents in this presentation. The first is translation method, the second is Newmark Flatten Free diagram, the third is source language emphasis, and the last is target language emphasis. Let's get to the first chapter. It is the definition of translation method. What the method of translation is? The method of translation is strictly specific. The strategy and the techniques we are using are individual and object of preference by the translator. As we know, translation is the communication of the meaning of a source language text by means of an equivalent target language text. And there are 8 types of translation. And according to Peter Newmark, the text translation method are divided into 2 parts. As you can see in the pictures, the first part is source language emphasis, which consists of word-of-word translation, literal translation, faithful translation, semantic translation. And the second part is target language emphasis, which consists of adaptation, free translation, idiomatic translation, and the last is communicative translation. And this is the picture of Newmark's flattened free diagram of translation methods. Okay, the first method is word-for-word translation. Word-for-word translation is a method of translating one word at a time in sequence. The thing that needs to be considered when using the word-for-word method is that we must maintain the sentence structure in the source language. Therefore, this method can be applied perfectly if the structure of the language to be translated is the same as the structure of the translation language, or if the source text contains single words. This method is usually to translate difficult words. And here are the examples. The first example is, there are 3 boys and 3 girls in group A. This is from source language. The example of target language is, ada 3 anak laki-laki dan 3 anak perempuan dalam kelompok A. We can see here, because the word order of the source sentence and the target sentence is similar, the word-for-word method can be applied. And the next example is, I have been living in Bogor. The target language, aku telah tinggal di Bogor. There is the similar word by word. The first, aku have been living telah tinggal in Bogor, di Bogor. It is the similar sentence. These are the examples of word-for-word translation. Let's move to the next method. It is literal translation. The next method is literal translation. Literal is a translation method in which the source language grammatical construction are converted to the nearest target language equivalents, but the words are translated singly. And here the example. The first example from source language is, she addressed me brightly, and the target language is, dia sapa saya dengan ceria. We can look at the example more. If the sentence translated with method word for word, then it will be like this, dia dipanggil saya ceria. Therefore, we cannot use word for word method for this example. So this example is from literal translation. And then the next example is, she had read a book of mine and had written to me about it. The target language is, dia telah membaca buku saya dan berkirim surat kepada saya tentang buku itu. Okay, these are the example of literal translation. And then, let's move to the next method, which is presented by Usela Fahma.
Now I'm Usala Fahma and I will explain about the next material that is faithful translation. Faithful translation is producing the precise contextual meaning without changing the source language text structure. The translation of this method sometimes still feels unfamiliar and still feels stiff because this method of translation stick to the intent and purpose of the source text. And next, that is the example of faithful translation. The first example, in such language, there is Jack is too well aware that he is naughty. In the target language, Jack menyadari terlalu baik bahwa ia nakal. The phrase too well aware translate into menyadari terlalu baik. This translation is feel weird, and it will look better if the sentence translate to Jack sangat sadar bahwa ia nakal. The next example is in the Dutch language, the local government opened a bond zone. And in the target language, pemerintah daerah sudah membuka kawasan berikat. The phrase bonded zone translates into kawasan berikat. The term of bonded zone has not commonly heard by Indonesian because Indonesian more familiar with the term of gudang penyimpanan barang-barang import than kawasan berikat. And the next material is semantic translation. Semantic translation take more account of the aesthetic value, that is, the beautiful and natural sounds of the source language text, compromising on meaning where appropriate so that no assonance, wordplay, or repetition jars in the finished version. And the example of semantic translation, in the source language there is he is a bookworm, and in target language dia seorang kutu buku. The meaning of that sentence is a person who really likes to read or bookaholic, and people who are really like reading in Western culture is known as a bookworm, whereas in Indonesian culture people whose hobby or like reading is called kutu buku. And the next example, in the Dutch language there is he is wearing a heavy jacket, and in the target language dia memakai sebuah jaket tebal. In semantic, the word heavy means tebal according to the nature of the jacket, and that is impossible to interpret based on dictionary because heavy in dictionary means berat, and in everyday life we never say jaket berat but we say jaket tebal. And the next material is adaptation. Adaptation is when the translator substitute cultural realities or scenarios for which there is no reference in the target language. And adaptation also known as free translation. And the example of adaptation, the first example in such language there is as white as snow, and in target language there is putih kapas. The real meaning of the sentence in such language is seputih salju, but because in Indonesia there is no snow, so we translate into seputih kapas. And the next example, today she weighs 21 stone. And in target language, there is sekarang dia berbobot 133 kilo. From that example, we know that the weight size in the search language is stone, but we translate into kilo because in the target language, stone is mean batu, and that is not make sense if we translate it with the actual meaning of stone. Okay, I think it's enough and it's all of my explanation. And the next material will explain by the next presenter.
Hello everyone, I am Shafatashi Andini. So now I will explain about free translation. Free translation is reproduced no matter without the manner or the content without the form of the original. Usually it is a paraphrase much longer than the original. You can see in search language, it's a heavy rain. You have better stay here for a while or you will be soaking wet. And in target language, di luar hujan deras, lebih baik kamu tinggal dulu beberapa saat atau kamu akan basah kuyup. The term heavy rain does not mean hujan berat, but it adjusts to the choice of word commonly used in Indonesian, namely heavy rain. And in second example, look, little guy, you all shouldn't be doing this. In target language, dengar nak, mengapa kamu semua melakukan hal-hal seperti ini? Ini tidak baik. And the next is Idiomatic Translation. Idiomatic translation is meaning-based translation which make every effort to communicate the meaning of the search language text in the natural forms of the receptor language. You can see in the search language, how was your test? Well, it's a piece of cake. And in target language, bagaimana tesmu? Oh, ini sangat mudah sekali. Piece of cake is an idiom in English to express something very easily. We cannot translate with an idiom expression either because there is no such expression in Bahasa. And the second example, tell me I'm not in a cage now. Target language, ayo berilah aku semangat, aku bebas sekarang. In a cage now, an idiom in English to express something very free. We cannot translate with an idiom expression either because there is no such expression in Bahasa. And the last is Communicative Translation. Communicative translation attempts to render the exact contextual meaning of the original in such a way that both content and language are readily acceptable and comprehensible to the readership. Communicative translation requires that the translation language has a form, meaning, and function. You can see in the search language, I would admit that I'm wrong. Target language, saya mau mengakui bahwa saya salah. And the second example, I will admit that I'm wrong. And target language is, saya akan mengakui bahwa saya salah. What distinguishes it lies in the use of the word would and will. The word would in the first sentence show the willingness to do something, while the word will in the second sentence only show an activity that will be carried out by the subject of the sentence.
Okay, everyone. Thank you for watching. May all those we have shared be beneficial for all of us. Thanks for attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye-bye.